I'm glad we have connections to heaven, don't you? I have three main ones, the reason I want to hear from heaven. The first one is that my Heavenly Father lives there. That's His place of abode. Not only does He live there, but He is the architect of that place we call heaven. He made it and put it together. And we often read in the Word where Jesus said to us when He taught us to pray, to say, "Our Father, which art in heaven." I'm convinced that He's there this morning and aware of our presence here today. And then the second thing is that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, is there. And He said He is our elder brother. If you'll study Jewish customs, you'll find that when the father was not doing something for the family, it fell the lot of the elder's brother or the oldest son to assume the responsibility of that. So I would say that you and I have an elder brother this morning that the Bible said sits at the right hand of God the Father making intercession for us. That is, He pleads our cause, and He is our friend, and He is there this very moment doing what we need Him to do for us. The third reason I like to hear from heaven is that recently my best supporter moved there from earth. And I feel like that she is there today singing in heaven's choir with the redeemed. The Bible said that angels cannot sing the song of the redeemed. Only those who have experienced forgiveness of their sins and who have been given a clean slate in heaven can join their voices together to sing the song of the redeemed. I'm glad we have connections in heaven. We need them. We need divine help. Help that goes above anybody's ability in this world. And this is one of the reasons we gather here on the Lord's Day. We come with an expectancy. We come believing. We come believing that when we get here, God will be here and He will meet with us and furnish comfort for the relief that we need when we gather here. Heaven invites our approach. Heaven expects us to get in touch with Him. God does. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, does. Heaven is not only inviting our approach, but heaven is accessible. I'm glad I can get in touch with them. And they get in touch with me. Between my 8th grade and becoming a freshman, my sister met this guy who was a military guy, and he came for the first time to court her. My mom and my sister and I lived alone, and we had been alone, but we had become a close-knit family. My sister had now graduated from high school, was employed at the local shirt factory, and not only was she part of our family as far as our love and compassion and concern for each other, but she was also part of the supplying the needs of our family. But suddenly along comes this ugly-looking fella that gets her attention to the extent that she says yes to him when he asked her to marry him. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know that it takes her all the way to Dover, Delaware, where the Air Force base was. We didn't have a phone because we couldn't afford one. And I remember on winter nights sitting before a grate with a fire in it, and we'd pop popcorn and talk, my mom and I. And I can remember a tear coming in her eye, and she'd look at me and say, I wish we could hear something from Evelyn. Every evening she'd remind me, you go to the post office and see if we got a letter, boy. Maybe we'll hear something today. And I'd go, come back, shake my head. She'd say with tears in her eyes, I thought for sure we'd hear something today. Expectancy. Just got to hear something, she'd say. Every now and then, my sister would call a neighbor. Mr. Albert Nixon owned a garage in the little town of Gordonsville, and when he'd start to work the next morning, he'd stop out front of our house and toot his horn, and we'd go to the door and he'd say, your sister's calling tonight at 7 o'clock. You need to be at our house. We ate early that evening. My mom would say, we can't afford to be late. And we'd go to the home of Albert and Mamie Nixon and sit in the dining room where the phone was, in dining room chairs, and they'd join us. They were as excited as we were. We were going to hear from somebody we loved. And we'd sit there with hands folded and watch the phone and listen till it rang. And then we'd take turns talking to my sister. When we went back home, we relived all the words that were said as we walked home. And then before we retired for the evening, my mom would say, wasn't it good to hear from Evelyn? Isn't it good to hear from heaven? When you think sometimes we're not going to hear anything, and suddenly you do. You see, heaven notices us. Do you know that? Heaven notices us. And Webster said a better way to describe heaven noticing us is to say heaven pays attention to us. Right when you think you are not going to hear, heaven notices and pays attention to you. Jesus said that he cares about all of us. Our Heavenly Father put us all together to live in this world and then to live in a better world when we leave here. But till we do, heaven pays attention to us. Heaven knows about you. Heaven knows when you spend hours at night alone and everybody's asleep and you're concerned about the things that trouble your soul. Heaven takes note of that, pays attention to it. The Bible said that God notices when a sparrow falls from the air. A sparrow was a poor man's offering in the temple in biblical days. They sold them for one little copper coin. The enemies of sparrows can be summed up like this: house cats, hawks, and naughty boys. The Word said that if God sees a sparrow that falls from the earth, that's sold for 1 copper coin to be offered in the temple, the Bible said that God said, how much more of worth are we? That heaven notices us, is looking after us, cares about us. We ought to turn to heaven more often than to the world. Job, in the midst of all his problems and the cares that he had, he said, oh, that if I just knew where I might find him. If I just knew where I could find him. I need to get in touch with him. I need to hear from him. He did get in touch with him. If you read the end of Job, the Bible said, the Lord touched the captivity of Job. Everything that Job had been, that had been taken from him, the Lord doubled it. Doubled it. He had twice more than he ever had. Because he did get in touch with heaven. There's a fellow by the name of Isaiah in the Old Testament, and he had a task to do. He said, it's too big for me. It's too big for me. I'm not qualified. I'm unfit, he said. I'm unfit. It's good that we feel unfit, because if we feel fit, chances are we're unfit. Because when we come to God, we need to come in humility, and we need to hear from heaven if we've been assigned a task. So I can't do that. God said to Isaiah, yes, you can. He said, heaven will make you fit. Make you fit. You'll be fit for this task. Isaiah said, I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in a generation of people who have unclean lips also. The Bible said the angel of the Lord came and took tongs and went to the altar, and from the fire he took a coal and came and touched it to Isaiah's lips and made him clean, made him whole. Then he is able to do the task. Do the task. In your weakness, folks, you need to tell God that you are unfit. I can't do this. I can't. If God asks of us for something, he always supplies the way to do it. He makes provisions. Heaven wants to help us. I would have liked to have seen Elijah when he stood on the mount and said to the prophets of Baal, we'll have a test, what we'll do. We'll see who God is. And they did. And God answered by fire, and God would prove to be God. But what about old Elijah when Jezebel wrote him a letter? He read it, and it said, I'm going to take your head off your shoulders. He got scared. And things started to disintegrate or to go downhill. And he said, I can't do this. And God said to Elijah, the journey's too great for you. He heard from heaven. Heaven said, it's too great for you. It said, I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to provide for you. And he did. And he did. And Elijah heard a still, small voice speak to him of encouragement. And he overcame the deficiencies in his life and was ready for battle again. Did you know this morning heaven knows all about you? Knows all about you. Knows all about me. He knows when I wake up at night and can't sleep. Heaven does. Knows about your problems, your cares, your burdens, your heartaches, your concerns about your loved ones and the needs in their lives. He knows about your children that's on your heart instead of your toes anymore. God knows about that. Heaven realizes that. You know, really, folks, some things are evident that we have a problem. We notice some things about each other, don't we? You know, we say to each other, not as strong as you used to be. I can tell by the way you get around, don't we? You know. Or we say, I told you that last week. We said, didn't tell me. You know. Some things are evident. But you know, the things sometimes that bother us the most are the things that aren't evident. They're things that we wouldn't let out. Things that we wouldn't share. We wouldn't tell our closest friends. We might not even tell our spouses or the members of our family, but the problem's there. It's in here. That's the kind of problems hurts the worst, folks. Is the ones that's in here. It's not physical and things that are evident. It's the things that are in here. Heaven's just as interested in that kind, folks, as they are the evident ones. I want Faye and Wayne to come, and they're going to sing a song, and I want us to stand. And I wonder today if you have something that you need help from heaven from, if you just slip out and come and stand at this altar. You don't even have to tell us about it. If you don't want to, that's fine. God knows what it is. Heaven's got a record of it. This morning, would you stand together? If you have anything at all you'd like to pray about this morning, you can turn it over to heaven.
I just heard from heaven, and this one thing I know, my sins are all forgiven. He washed them white as snow. The heavy load I carry, He took away somehow. And I just heard from heaven, and it's all right now.
We hear from heaven through His Word, don't we? The Word's God's letter to us. Came from heaven. The Word did. The Bible said the Word became flesh. That was Jesus, and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory like unto the Father. I like the Word, don't you? I bought me a new Bible last week. I had to have it because I couldn't see. So I got giant print. I said, I want the biggest you got. Bring them out. Let me look at them. You know, I like reading this. I like it. Says a lot to me. But heaven also says something to us through each other. You know, through each other. These folks have come today, said, I need to hear from heaven. maybe we also hear from heaven through extended grace from each other. I know this isn't a gospel song, but you remember the song, Lean on Me? You remember that? It said, lean on me if you're not strong, you know. And then it said, you just may have a problem that I understand. I wonder if somebody, at least one person or more, would come and just stand beside of these folks and take their hand and say, you can lean on me. You can lean on me. I'll be one you can lean on. We'll get through this together. And we need somebody, don't we, from time to time. We'll get through this together. We're going to make it. We're not going to give up. Heaven's going to do something about this, you know. And heaven keeps their word. Surely does. Anybody else need somebody to just say, you know, I need to lean on somebody, you know. Brother Wayne can't sing. He leans on Miss Faye a lot, don't you?
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Brother Bill, he's got somebody comes in time to time. And I know they go ahead anyway. But some of our worst hurts and problems may be in here, folks. You may be hurting right now. Hard, deep, hurts. Won't you just turn it over to that place we call heaven? Going to send this up to you. Let you handle this. You know. It'd be handled expertly, won't it? By experts. Something will happen that's good. Could you sing that chorus one more time?
I just heard from heaven, and this one thing I know, my sins are all forgiven. He washed them white as snow. The heavy load I carry, He took away somehow. And I just heard from heaven, and it's all right now.
Now, I'm going to say something else, and this is not to discourage you, but it's true. I woke up last night. I wake up a lot of nights with tears. And I'll go home tonight and I'll be alone and eat supper alone and go to bed alone, and I might wake up again. And I need to hear from heaven again, and I'll hear. It may still be there, but I'm not discouraged because I have heaven that listens when I call. And I would say to you folks, the problem might still nag you, but you have somebody to help you. Now, they said, I'm going to stand with you, and you can lean on me. You can lean on me. When the phone rings and Emily says to me, Poppy, I was checking on you. Isn't that good? Yeah, we just checking on you. Our clerk called the other day and said, you need to spend the day with us today, Thanksgiving. You don't need to be alone. Remember, folks, let somebody lean on you, because it may come to the place where you'll need somebody to lean on yourself. Don't you think so? Let's stand together. Hug that person that said you could lean on them, would you? Yeah. And I want to ask you something. If you just symbolically would just come at this altar and take your hands and say, I'm going to lay all these problems down. I can't carry them no more. I've carried this load as far as it can go. too heavy. Can't do it. God don't want you to, you know. Choose not to do it. Just come over here at this altar and say, here it is. May not be visible, but it's there. It's still there. You're going to lay it down. Would you do that? Just say, I'm going to lay this down. I'm going to leave it here with God. He's the only one that can handle it. God bless you. God bless you. God will help you. He'll do it. He'll do it. He'll do it. Sing that one more time, and then we'll go.
I just heard from heaven. Sing it, everybody. This one thing I know, my sins are all forgiven.
My
Sins are all
forgiven.
He washed them white as them white. The load that once I carried, He took away somehow. I just heard from heaven. I just heard from heaven, and it's all right now.